Hey Gapsters, how you Gapsters doing? Thank you so much for joining me on another PhD series video. I really appreciate all the support you guys have given to me, my channel, and this series as well. I really appreciate all the support you gave me on the last PhD video. It was a difficult video for me to film, and thank you so much Gapsters just for your encouraging words and the support that you give me on all my endeavors here on YouTube and outside in the real world. Anyway, today's topic is on things to consider when you decide to go back to school after working. But let me know if you like this video, what other content you'd like to see. Please don't forget to subscribe if you haven't. If you are a golden oldie, thank you so much. I keep on calling you guys golden oldies, but you know what I mean. It's all based on love. Yeah, so thank you so much. So one of the first considerations you need to make about going back to school after working is realizing that chances are age has in some ways caught up with you and school is not as easy as it used to be. For example, I used to be able to pull all-nighters all the time. Now I am still like a night owl, so I do work better at night, but I found that now like I go to bed around potentially 1 or 2. Back in the day, I could go the whole night, watch the sunrise, and be in class for the full day and be just like, you know, hip and happening, perky and chirpy. But my body and my mind want their rest. And if they don't get their rest, I don't learn anything. So I need to get some sleep. You might have forgotten a couple of things. You might need refresher courses. So don't be afraid to be the one asking the really basic questions as if like you never actually did the undergraduate in that course. Just ask. I remember like going back and just being like blank, like I don't remember reading this guy and I don't remember reading that guy and I don't remember this theory and I used to ask so many questions in my honors year. It was unbelievable. So don't be afraid to be that person who's like, oh my god, but I know this, and then realizing that actually no, your brain has decided that other things are more important. I had been working for about 4 years when I decided to go back to school, and when I decided to go back to school, I was working part-time and also studying during the office working hours. The course I was doing didn't offer any night classes, so I would have to attend during the day. Now I was able and lucky enough to be able to negotiate that time off with my boss, Gapsters. I will have to say that to negotiate that time off, you can't just show up and be like, yo, I need time off for school. Granted, companies do have a responsibility to develop you as a person and as an employee and to help you develop your career. However, it's not a right, Gapsters. They have a responsibility to it, but it's not a right, and they can also pick and choose in the kinds of support that they give you. So for instance, if they feel that you're not trustworthy enough, you are not responsible enough to make sure that your work doesn't fall short and your work doesn't suffer, if they don't think that you have the work ethic in order to carry it through, they might not agree to time off for you. They might say, you know, or they might agree to less time off, because if it's too many hours, then they feel like maybe you won't be able to handle them. For instance, I used to take a day and a half off each week. No, it was one full day off each week. So I used to take Monday afternoons off, so I'd leave at lunchtime so that I could drive to school and have a little bit of lunch and be there for the 2 o'clock seminar, which carried on until 4:30. I would have a Thursday morning class, which then I would miss the Thursday mornings and be at work at lunchtime and work through the rest of the afternoon. My boss and I'm lucky I had a good enough relationship with her, and I was able to negotiate those times off, and we decided that I would work in those hours that I had off in the other days of the week. So I might work through lunch for Tuesday, Friday and Wednesday. I would work throughout the lunch hour. I would also work extra hours and maybe leave an hour or two later during one of those weekdays, just to make sure that I'd covered all my hours up, and I also had to make sure that all my work was done so that the following day there weren't things that were left basically undone and those kind of things. So you can negotiate for time off and those kind of things, but you need to have ammunition to negotiate with, basically. So don't just expect it because you've been accepted at university. And I decided that I was going to be a full-time student. I made this decision with a couple of considerations in mind. One, I didn't have any responsibilities that required me to be working. So for instance, I'm not a parent, I don't have a house bond, I didn't have any credit really at that time. I think probably the only credit I had at the time was a cell phone bill. My car had been almost paid up, so I think it was going to finish being paid up like in 1 or 2 payments, so I wasn't really worried about that. As I've said, your brain does need to catch up, so you might find yourself doing extra schoolwork on the side just so that you can catch up. And also I could see the course growing in terms of its requirements of me in terms of time, and just basically when I was thinking about where I want the course to be and what was my dreams and what was my goals, because now studying going to be my main focus. So with that in mind, I decided that I was going to be a part-time student. I decided I was going to be a full-time student. Now I was lucky. That was a choice that I was able to make. Not everybody is able to make that choice. Some people have to, for instance, continue working and studying at the same time. Other people can only be employed and have great difficulty even considering going back to school. So I understand that I was very lucky to be able to make those choices. Once I decided that I was going to quit my job, the first reality hit. Hey, no more paycheck. And no more paycheck basically also comes with the fact that I'm going to have to downgrade my life. It's not just that I'm not going to be receiving this one paycheck this month. I'm not going to be receiving this paycheck, next month's paycheck, the following month's paycheck, and every month after that I will not be receiving a paycheck. So immediately you have to start making some financial concessions about your life. I used to live in a townhouse, and then after the townhouse I moved to a cottage, and I actually moved to the cottage in preparation of studying. So I moved out of that townhouse a year before I decided to come back to school, just because I was already trying to rearrange my life so that everything is that I'm already living that compact life. It wasn't a shock to my system to be all of a sudden unemployed and cutting down my life and all of those things. And then after my first year of studying and still living off campus, once I got my honors degree, I decided for my master's degree and now again for my PhD degree that I'm going to live on campus. That also took away the transportation cost that I was paying. Even though I moved closer to campus, I still had to drive up and down to come to campus. I was still paying for my own internet, whereas here at Res, I've got free internet. The accommodation is cheaper here. It's a smaller room and those kind of things, but the accommodation is cheaper here than the cottage in which I was living in. So you basically also need to declutter your life. You need to downgrade everything, and I mean everything. Even that move from a cottage to this room was hard, Gapsters, but it's doable. You can do it if you really, really, really want to do it. And you can find other ways as well. If you have family that can support you and take you in, and maybe you can still live in a house with more space. I don't know. There's options out there. Putting your life on hold. When you start working, you get this image of sort of like your life going forward, like a train zooming in. You start doing things like investing, planning for a house, planning for kids, planning for marriage, planning for all of these things. And there's something about going back to school that just makes you feel like a student and makes you feel like whoa, there I am back again. And even people, when people find out that you're a student, they're like, But it's not just that also, because your finances probably aren't looking the same way that they were looking and those kind of things, you probably are not in a position to be making those investments. You probably, most students I know, for instance, don't even have pension funds. They don't have disability funds, grant funds, insurance. They don't have life insurance and those kind of things. And those are just the cheap ones. Imagine trying to buy a house, trying to buy a car. I mean, how are you going to get a bond to buy a house if you're not even getting a paycheck salary, pay slip to apply for one? I tried ordering a cell phone contract the other day. They told me that no, you can't get one, right? Because you don't get a pay slip. But if I work, so if you don't have a 3 months of a pay slip, now I work for research companies, so I might work, for instance, 1 month here for research for one company, and then next month be doing research for another company, and then the next month be doing research for another company. I can give you 3 pay slips. They just won't come from the same company. So already that's a no-no. Like I look unstable and things like that. So you need to consider things like that, that in many ways you are putting your life on hold. Sometimes because you are putting your life on hold, and other times because society is basically saying to you, you are not ready, you know. Also, you're putting your life on hold because you're not building any credit, chances are, at that time. Like I told you, you probably not get, like right now, I don't have a cell phone contract. I don't have any other form of credit really. And in order to build credit, you need to have credit. So already you're putting your life on hold, because by not having any credit, when I finish my studies right now, I will have to actually go back and rebuild my credit score. Just because I don't have bad credit doesn't mean my credit is good. So I have to go back, I have to get into debt, I need to show people that I can pay off my debt. And that means that there's a further delay in terms of potentially me buying a house, for instance. But you're also potentially putting your career on hold. I know people like to say that school is career, but it's not. For instance, I'm at school now, and like I've said, I work 5 jobs. I'm like one of those people. No, but I work a lot. I work a lot of jobs. I work a lot of things, but at the same time, those jobs are not necessarily career building jobs. Those jobs are sometimes just money jobs, right? I could fill up my CV with money jobs, but career building jobs are a completely different thing. So you need to also consider you are putting a hold on your career in many ways. And when you leave, whatever studies you're leaving, at whatever level you're leaving at, you might have to do a lot of work in terms of building up your CV again, and not just with the school. Oh no, I spent the last 2 years doing school, and then what? Right now, many industries are changing so fast that you need to be able to be keeping up with it. So even when you're at varsity, you either need to figure out ways to stay on track and relevant in terms of your career and your field, or you need to do a lot of hard work post-university to get that stuff done. You also need to consider how your family is going to be resituated. If you are, for instance, if you're married, luckily school is like, you know, you can do school during the day and potentially be at home in the afternoons. But for things like if you're in your marriage, you want to have family, if you want to start having kids, you might have to negotiate potentially delaying having those kids. If you are seeing somebody, you might have to consider, and you want to get married, you have to consider the stress of going back to school, plus marriage and all of those things. I've heard from my recently married colleagues who are back at school that it's not as easy as it sounds. You might have to consider things like maybe moving back and living with your family again, or if you are the one who's financially supporting your family, as many black kids do, and I suppose also other races, but majority of black kids, once they start working, support their families in some way. You need to consider how you're going to continue helping provide that support that you had been giving them whilst you were working. So going back to school is not just a decision that you make for yourself, but it's a decision that's inclusive of the people who are around you and support you, your immediate family, your immediate friends. Discuss the impacts of what it is that you deciding to go back to school are. Decide on how it is that you're going to handle the concessions that need to be made, because like I've said, they'll also be impacted. So don't expect them to just accept your decision to go back to school because, oh no, you know, it's a good reason for the long term. Yeah, but to get to the long term, you have to go through the short term. So they need to be on board with you in the short term in order for you to reach the long term. And then also that little bit of regret and that little bit of watching everybody seem to be like doing what they're doing and doing life, and you feeling like you've put everything on hold, that is natural. I think everybody feels that in whatever choices that they've made. Don't let that determine how you feel about the choices that you've made. Yes, it happens. Yes, it happens. But don't let it be your main focus after a while, because you forget your dream and why it is that you're doing what you're doing. We all have, like, what if? What if is always there. Thank you so much, Gapsters, for watching this. Let me know what you thought about the video and the content. Let me know about your comments, if you have any comments to what I've said. I know I've kept it really short and really focused to specific things, but I was really trying to keep this video short and sweet. Bye, Gapsters.